Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You are joining your host, Greg Tompsett, tonight. My partner in crime, Aaron Quinn. Aaron, are you feeling undefeated?
I'm feeling very undefeated, sir. And I got bad news for my wife. This dirty looking mustache is sticking around for at least another week. Depending on the Titans game, it might be 2 weeks for her. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a whole other topic we'll get into tonight. But welcome everybody. Very excited here. Tonight's show presented by Uncle Jumbo's. Really excited to be able to have our partners there. Today was a great day. Was not quite as stressful as last week, but still some stress. The Buffalo Bills are 4-0 after a 30-23 victory over the Las Vegas Raiders out in Las Vegas. Only the second game ever at Allegiant Stadium. And, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't pretty. But in today's NFL, everybody saw over the past 48 hours how fickle things are right now and how many players are being lost to all the crazy things going on here. The Bills went on the road to a team that was 2-1 and looked pretty good and beat the New Orleans Saints, and they got a road victory by a comfortable margin and covered. I'm happy.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there was definitely times it wasn't pretty, but the offense was pretty much pretty all throughout the day, and I felt great every time the Bills had the ball. The defense had its ups and downs, but I don't think it was as bad as maybe I haven't been on Twitter yet, but I'm assuming the vibe on Twitter was, the defense is still broken. So I think there was a lot of growth in this game, and obviously there was a lot of ugly in it. But yeah, the 1 o'clock games were kind of wacky and ugly as well. It's just the brand of football we're getting in this year has been that way.
Yeah, and it's something that I think that it's okay to acknowledge that the defensive performance was not great. They gave up a lot. There is some context that's important. I mean, just about every team in the NFL is putting up points right now. There's a couple teams playing some good defense. The Colts are playing some decent defense. The Steelers are playing some decent defense. Other than that, unless you're playing the Giants or the Jets or the Redskins, everybody's giving up 20, 30, 40 points. It's just the way that it's going this year in the NFL. There's a lot of reasons for it. People have looked into the reduction in holding calls, a little less ticky-tack in areas there. Some of the different pieces as far as aggression, more teams are going for it on fourth down. There's less kind of the give up punting stuff. It seems like that analytics movement has not huge, but moved the needle a little bit. And, overall, you're just seeing better teams score more. So when teams like the Bills go from being 19 points a game to 30 points a game, that makes a huge difference. The Packers are up by 12 or 13 points a game. And it's just defenses are not looking good all over the NFL. Sadly, the Buffalo Bills are part of that defensive slump and not looking great. But it's certainly better to feel that way, have some good film to break down while being 4-0.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things there real quick. I just want to, NFL has been trending this way, COVID or not. We've seen record-breaking offensive performances year in and year out. It's just continued to be on that trend as innovative offenses, defense is not quite catching up with the innovative offenses. Just that's how there's a lot of offensive talent, running backs, wide receivers coming out in almost every draft. So you're seeing just loads of talent on that side of the ball as well. I don't know that it was that bad of a performance. I do want to go back and look at it. This has always been a bend but don't break team. The thing that we were probably worried about the most going up against Las Vegas was Josh Jacobs. They did a pretty good job there. We saw
carries for 41 yards.
Yeah, that is exactly what I wanted to see was, the run defense come in. It's not like the Raiders totally went away from the run. They did try to establish the run at different points in the game. It's a little concerning to see the passing yards given up, but I do think that's a league-wide issue. Yeah. But outside of that, late touchdown where they were kind of in a prevent and, the Raiders get back on the board there with the touchdown. They mostly held them to field goals, and that's been the bend but don't break Sean McDermott defense we've seen. We've seen this defense go through different types of lulls his entire time here. So I was encouraged by a lot of what we saw. There's still a lot definitely to clean up, and there's going to be some issues on film for that defense to go through. But I was encouraged by a lot, especially from the past performances of the last 3 weeks. I thought it was much better.
Yeah, and it's something where it's perfect in the progression of a season and what Leslie Frazier and Sean McDermott talk about, the fact that they are going through and being able to get victories, comfortable victories. I mean, the Bills won by a touchdown today and covered, and part of that was a garbage touchdown at the end. They were up by 14 with under a minute or with a minute to go. The fact that they're getting comfortable victories that stress us out and, aren't good for my heart, but at least are able to go and they're covering the spread. They're winning by a touchdown. and they're 4-0 while giving, a really critical film grading guy like Sean McDermott, who is going to grind these guys like crazy on all those pieces. We'll get to Josh Allen here in a minute, but Josh Allen had a really clean game, but he had a couple boneheaded plays. They're going to hammer him on those boneheaded plays, even though he had a really, really good game. It's that kind of thing that's what's going to make this team better in the long run. And instead of learning those lessons in tough losses, they're learning those lessons in comfortable victories. That's a really foreign feeling for me.
It's fantastic. And that's something we've talked about here the last couple of weeks with Josh Allen's performances. That people are frustrated that there's still these people out there saying, oh, well, this throw and that throw. And it's like, well, the dude's throwing for 300-400 yards and leaving meat on the bone. That's a fantastic problem to have while winning, right? It's not like he's throwing for 300 yards and trying to catch up and losing. Like, the offense has established themselves in every game and have taken control of games week in and week out so far. Now the sample size is not an excuse anymore, right? We're a quarter of the way through the season. And so that's not an excuse anymore going forward. One thing I'd like to point out with the defense as well today, we love to talk about toxic differential here, and we'll get into more of it a little bit later, but the Bills had the advantage 6-3, and the defense almost tied Las Vegas entirely. They had the fumble,
that was a stretch there late in the third quarter, early into the fourth quarter, where they were knocking balls loose.
Jefferson fumble, and I still think that the Milano one was a fumble, and they just didn't get it. So they almost tied in toxic differential alone. Plus, they had the fourth down stop in the second half. So there was a lot of big plays, and even when your defense is struggling and giving up a lot of yards and giving up frustrating plays, and Kaiir did a good job moving the sticks, and that's frustrating to sit and watch. But when your defense makes big plays in big spots, that's the sign of a great defense. All the box score stuff, throw it out the window. When you need a play, when you have a 4th and 1, and your defense stops, that's the second time we've seen that this year already in 4 games where this defense came through on a 4th and short and stopped it and got the offense back the ball. I mean, that is a special thing, and that's what I want to see, because I think the rest of the stuff we can fix by November, December, the gap integrity stuff, the coverage stuff, that's all things that McDermott and Frazier can fix, like you said, in the film room going forward. But that other stuff, that's like an intangible to this defense that's special.
Well, and for as much hard time as the Bills defense got on Twitter today, and for me, I certainly wasn't kind in some of the things that we saw in that critical stretch after the Raiders kicked the field goal to make it 17-16, where it started to get a little bit anxious. Like, all right, I thought we were going to be a little bit more comfortable here. I even posted them. I'm not nervous yet. I think they're going to be fine. The offense hasn't been slowed down yet. They went 4 straight drives against the Raiders, and in those 4 straight drives, they gave up 80 total yards in 4 drives with punt, fumble, turnover on downs, fumble. And they did that while the Bills put up back-to-back touchdowns. So the Bills going from 17-30 is great, but going from 17-30 while the defense didn't give anything up is the reason that they won that game. So although the defense did not have a great game overall, they made some clutch plays when it mattered. And that, right now in the modern NFL, with the kind of offense that, Brian Daboll and Josh Allen are cooking up here, that's going to work and you're going to win. If you cause multiple turnovers and a turnover on downs and you're putting up 30 points, you're going to win in this league. That's just point blank period.
Yeah. And they really put the pressure on the Raiders, who, again, it was frustrating to watch them put up yards and get into field goal range and kind of keep points on the board. People got to also keep in mind, part of that is they've been good at finishing halves, right? So they finish the half with points and then they get the ball back. Like, that's just a good strategy. They get the ball back and they really kind of close the gap on the Bills with some points to get back. But that was really it. That's where the game was close. And then the Bills kind of broke away from there. But it is a frustrating offense to watch, and it's there on the film every week. That we talked about it here before we went live. Kaiir gets ripped for being that check down guy. And that's really frustrating when it doesn't work and you're not converting. But when you're continuing to move the chains, when you're on the other side of that, that is super frustrating. But the benefit of having that kind of bend but don't break and don't give up big plays. And there was they gave up a couple big plays, and luckily they had an illegal formation, or that touchdown could have blown the game in the other direction. But the Bills did a good job of keeping everything in front of them. We saw a good job tackling. Nobody really got loose on this defense. So, yes, it's frustrating to watch. Yes, it leads to a box score that's going to get talked about on Twitter of a lot of yardage. Kaiir had a good day statistically. Yes, I want to see more pressure throughout the game, all those things. But I do think the defense had a much better game than they've had so far this year. And I think they made a lot of steps in the right direction to improve here going into the middle of October.
Well, let's get into why it was okay for that defense not to be perfect. How exciting is it that Josh Allen had his worst game today? He had his fewest rushing yards. He had his fewest passing yards. He still had 288 yards, 2 touchdowns, a rushing touchdown, only 1 sack, no interceptions, no fumbles, and that statistically, this is his worst game of the year. It's unbelievable that he's raised the bar so much that a game like this is now the threshold of what is his worst game per se. He only completed 70.5% of his passes. He only averaged 8.5 yards per attempt. He only had 115 quarterback rating. What's wrong with Josh Allen?
So it's funny because I had a little bit of an epiphany today. So I keep notes, and for people watching live, I keep these notes and I check positive plays and negative plays. So I'd kind of know if we do player of the games and stuff, who to talk about. And the last couple of years, there were plays that I would check Josh Allen as a positive play that were pretty basic quarterback plays, right? Like on a hitch and he delivers and it's an accurate ball and I'd give him a check and all this stuff. And today, about halfway through the game, I had this epiphany. I was like, I got to stop handing him these easy ones because I'm going to have no checks left. Like that ship has sailed, and Josh is not that guy anymore, where the stuff that I was surprised he was making year 1, year 2, the throws to the sidelines and things like that, those are now commonplace and they're not a special play. And so now the special plays are the 49-yard bomb to Diggs and having the confidence that your guy's one-on-one, he's going to come down with that play. So it's great to watch. And when you're taking the notes, to visually kind of think about like, hey, I don't have to check those quick outs that he hits accurately anymore because he's an accurate quarterback and he's hitting those all the time with consistency. I can't just give him those anymore. The bar has been raised in my own evaluation during the game. That's great.
Oh, it's amazing. And yeah, Elijah, is very kind to you. Thank you very much, man. We appreciate it. And it's great to be able to watch a game like this. And, they're just chipping away at it. It probably wasn't our best rushing game, but I will say, don't read into Devin Singletary's box score too much. It looks like 18 carries for 55 yards at 3.1 yards per carry. That really got watered down in those last 2 drives. I think 6 carries for maybe 0 yards came there. So prior to that, I think it was 12 carries for 55 yards and, a good 4.5 yards a carry. So it was an okay rushing game. For anything that there's a takeaway long-term from this game, I think one of them is this defense needs to be a little bit better. I'll get to some of my strategy that I hope we see a pivot moving forward. But for anything that you see offensively, the biggest takeaway from this game is this is a passing team. The Las Vegas Raiders have been run on multiple times. The Patriots punch them in the mouth over and over and over again. This is a passing team. We are going to pass the ball. We are going to pass the ball more than we run the ball, and that is going to be their bread and butter every game. It's weird because I keep going into these games saying, okay, this is the one where it just makes too much sense to run the ball. We're finally going to get back to that 50-50. And again, 34 passing plays, 24 rushing plays, and even 2 of those were kneel downs at the end. We're still at like 60-40, 65-35. This is a passing team.
Yeah, I think it's going to be there all year, but I do think we're going to have games. And I do think last week was one of those games where Singletary had a sneaky performance that was really helping that offense move the ball. And even today, until like you said, in that fourth quarter where he had a bunch of 0 and negative yard runs, I think he did do a lot to help keep the offense on schedule. And that's really all you need is to maintain that threat and have that ability to keep the offense on schedule and keep, allow Allen to be in a 3rd and short or a 2nd and short. And then that really opens up some of the downfield ability that the Bills have. So it's still an important part of this offense. And I do think as the season goes on, you will see performances where Singletary just has a big game with those 18 touches. So we will see it from him. But I agree with you. I think we're going to stay. It's going to be a 60-40. Daboll's too smart of a guy. The majority of the weapons are on the outside. It's so hard for defense to match up with the amount of weapons that they have. Even when you're throwing Andre Roberts out there, and we saw McKenzie do some things with the ball. Like, these are your 4th and 5th guys who can still break plays at any time. And Davis is coming along super nice. I mean, it just makes too much sense to spread it out. Allen's dealing to a number of guys. It's not like he's just focusing in on Diggs. He's still dealing to a number of guys. So, I mean, it shows really to me, again, I don't want to hear any Brian Daboll hate. If I see it on the Twitter, I'm going to mute you. I might even block you because he has adjusted so fantastic. And one of the pieces pregame where Boomer Esiason was talking with Josh Allen, he said, what's your favorite thing with Brian Daboll? They're talking. He's like, hey, if I don't like something or we don't like something, Daboll takes it out. Like, he trusts in these players. He listens to them, and he's doing everything to put them in the best position possible. And that right now is going to be 60-40 or more passing.
Oh, so I'm so happy John brought this up. It's absolutely perfect. The best example. Raise your hand if you started to question, like, good Lord, how much jet motion are they going to do? Isaiah McKenzie's got to be tired. It's every single play, jet motion, jet motion, jet motion. And you're kind of getting tired of it. Guess what? The Raiders were getting tired of it too. And when they gave him the ball on 4th and 1, nobody was there. And he ran for 15 yards on an easy 4th and 1 conversion because he lulled them into a false sense of security that, nope, it's just eye candy. Don't worry about this. Don't worry about this. You want to know where he got that from? Sean McVay did it to us last week with Robert Woods because he kept giving Robert Woods that jet motion. Don't worry about this. It's just eye candy. Don't worry about it. This is nothing. Boom, give him the ball. Nobody's there. And he waited for it and plucked it exactly on 4th and 1 when they needed it with a big stacked formation, brought him across the play. They thought it was eye candy. Boom, give him the ball, 15 yards, 4th down conversion, huge play. That's Brian Daboll setting it up and timing the call.
Yeah, he's been doing that type of stuff for a long time now here, and he finally has the personnel, I think, to run the offense the way he wants. And it's a credit to him that he knew the last couple of years that things were limited. Josh Allen was limited, the talent was limited, even the offensive line, and he played to that. Now that he has a full deck to work with, we're seeing really the creativity and the modern offense that everyone was screaming for the last 2 years. We're finally seeing that, and I'm telling you, man, it's dangerous. And if the defense can even, play to the level they did today and improve upon that, which I do think they will, I think they can go toe to toe with anybody. I mean, Kansas City's still a whole different beast, and we'll get it. We have a couple weeks before we have to deal with talking about that. But outside of that, man, there really isn't a team right now in the NFL that I don't think Bills can't outscore in a shootout, and that I do think that this defense can come away with enough plays to slow most of these teams down.
So the last part of the offense here, it's unbelievable. It's taking me a while to scroll my eyes through all the guys who caught passes today because there was freaking 10 of them. Yep. 10 different guys got the ball, and you can see how excited they are for each other. The fact that a guy like Stefon Diggs is pumped when other guys are getting the ball, that John Brown is over there chirping for his guys, that everybody's excited for Cole Beasley when he's making plays. And you said it pre-show, I'm excited that Josh Allen is taking shots. I'm excited that he has confidence in this receiving core, but it's kind of hard not to have confidence when they're coming down with some of the catches that they're making right now.
Yeah, honestly, love what Josh Allen's doing, and some of the balls he put where only his guy could get it. But some of the catches we saw today were some of the best catches I've seen Bills receivers make in forever. And we had all those issues right a year ago with drops, and Beasley was part of that. John Brown was still part of that. You're not seeing that as much this year. We had that one series where they had 2 drops in a row, and that's going to happen. That happens to every NFL team. You're going to have those. But some of the catches today, man, were unbelievable. And they shouldn't, 9 times out of 10, those are not going to be completed passes, even as good of a ball as Josh Allen put out there. And the receivers were coming down with them today. That's the NFL, though, man. You look at some successful teams throughout the years, they get 4 or 5 plays that just end up their way in a game that maybe shouldn't otherwise. And sometimes you need that to have a 12-win season like we predicted. And right now it's coming up all Bills. And I don't mind that at all.
Murray making a great comment here that some of the stuff that got brought up that, Stefon Diggs is a malcontent or is a problem. Every single report that came out is that he's uber competitive, super passionate all the time, even in practice, even to a fault. Like, he does not take a rep off. He talks trash to everybody all the time, but he does it in a way that he's trying to push and encourage his teammates. I think there were some guys in Minnesota that didn't mesh well with. I don't know that that's the kind of guy that Kirk Cousins is. You can tell. I think Kirk Cousins is maybe a little better than some Bills fans give him a hard time for, but he's not Josh Allen. They are very, very different people. They're very, very different players. They're very, very different quarterbacks. And I don't know that it was a perfect fit. I think Josh Allen's unbelievable, fiery, competitive spirit is a perfect fit for Stefon Diggs. I think that kind of homework that Brandon Beane and Dan Morgan and Joe Shane did to know who they were bringing in. And then you saw some smart reporting that came out after that, there's no there's nothing out there about him being a bad person or a bad teammate. It's just that when a guy is that hyper aggressive, hyper competitive, that's not a perfect fit with everybody. And I think it's a perfect fit here. And you can see when you have other veteran receivers like John Brown and Cole Beasley, they fit with that. They're cool with having another guy like that in the room, and having a guy like that be who Gabe Davis is watching as he's coming up. This wide receiving core is unbelievable. I'm perfectly happy to put them up against any receiving core in the NFL.
Yeah, I think some of it came from, and I will give it credit, is the cryptic tweeting.
Yeah, a little bit.
And it's whatever. Everyone has their own thing and way of dealing with frustrations and things like that. He put out some cryptic tweets, and I always don't love that stuff when my players on my team do that too. But I do think he had valid reasons for the frustration they had in Minnesota. They had big expectations there, Super Bowl caliber expectations a few of his years there, and they weren't living up to it. There were some frustrating times during the season. One thing I will say, it's easy to be doing a lot of high-fiving and fun and all this stuff when you're dropping 30 a game and winning, and the ball's coming your way and there's production. I'm not saying that Diggs won't be that way when times get tough. I think the Bills do a good job of prepping these guys for adversity, whether it's in-game or throughout the season and all those things. I do think that they're going to be fine with that. But I do want to just say, like, it's really easy to be high-fiving everybody when you're 4-0 and your offense is just blowing by everybody and putting up 30 a game. So something to keep an eye on. I don't think we'll get there with Diggs, but the cryptic tweets, I think, led to a lot of the ideas that he's some diva, which if that's the diva-ist thing a person's doing, go ahead, get on Twitter and throw out some cryptic tweets. I don't care.
I'm here. I'm rocking Stefon Diggs all day. That's my
I like that
right
shirt.
I'm excited. And John brought up here that catch by Cole Beasley. It's fun to joke about it because he was healthy and fine and nothing happened from it. But I had comments about Don Beebe and needing Mark Kelso's helmet, which I thought were both pretty good ones for that catch coming up, bouncing off of his head. The last one on offense, I thought the offensive line was solid today. Obviously, the Raiders don't have any Aaron Donald, Von Miller players, so you should look better, and they did. Josh had one sack that was totally on him, 100% a coverage sack that was a horrible decision that took us out of field goal range. We had a 45-yard field goal from the 28-yard line, and he lost 14 yards that would have made it a 60-yard field goal just about. So that one was completely on him. Other than that, there was nothing. They didn't run the ball a ton, but there was a little bit of room. You know, Singletary's always making a guy miss. They didn't have huge running lanes or anything like that. But I thought the offensive line looked solid today. We saw Quinton Spain rotate in a couple times at right guard. It's the first time I've seen that, and the first time he's played right guard ever for the Buffalo Bills. So some different things we were seeing there, but looks like they're still getting ready for Feliciano coming back. Anything stand out to you with the O-line?
No, nothing that I have a tough time really. It sounds like a cop-out, but I do have a tough time watching the offensive line during the broadcast. But like you said, nothing really stood out as bad. But I do think that was a little bit the competition they were playing against. Like, there's definitely players over on that side of the ball. I'm a big Max Crosby fan. He's had a little bit of a quiet year from his big breakout rookie campaign, but I didn't see anyone dominating this offensive line, so that's a good sign. I did see some stuff in the run game. They just didn't hit on a lot of it. So I will be excited when Feliciano comes out. I did see people were sharing in the Slack channel, Feliciano talking about how much he loved Allen on one of those throws. Like, he's
all game long.
He's a guy that just wants to be out there so bad, and clearly the team and Sean McDermott, they just love him. So I'm really excited for him to get back out there, and that clock's kind of ticking here. Now we're past this Raiders game where he thought he'd come back. And I think depending what happens with the Titans game, we'll talk about here this week, that could be coming up here in the next 2 games or so. We could be seeing Feliciano come back.
I'm going to go at pure random speculation and guess. I think that little long stretch mini bye after the Thursday Chiefs game would be a nice time to get him back into things. Let him start practicing the Monday and Tuesday before the Chiefs game. Don't activate him. Bring him back after that. But if he's ready, he's a guy that Sean McDermott's not going to be able to keep off the field. So Pete making a good point here. I positively noticed Cody Ford multiple times today, and it might be the first time I've ever done that, where it wasn't a negative. And I was like, oh, who mauled that? Oh, that was Cody Ford multiple times. So maybe left guard is a thing for him. I'm excited for the all-22 to come out. You can see the offensive line so much better from the backfield, end zone view. So we'll look at that when it comes up. But I thought the offensive line was good today. And I'm just going to reiterate this after 4 games. Darrell Williams was a lottery ticket find. The fact that they got Darrell Williams for $2.5 million, and he's, I don't know if he's all pro like he was with Carolina. He is a darn good starting right tackle, and they got a darn good starting right tackle for $2.5 million. That is a gold mine right there.
Yeah, and that was a guy that I was like really pumping the brakes on, because there's only so many times, maybe it isn't, but there's only so many times where you think like they can get a guy on a good deal who's had success in the past, but isn't really had success in the last few years, and turn him back into a guy that's a starting NFL caliber player at his position. They've done it again, as it seems here with Darrell Williams. So maybe that's something Bean can keep pulling out of his hat. You'd think that would run up here at some point, but I was very, Feliciano and Williams the last 2 years. Those were guys where I was like, I don't know how much we're going to get out of these guys, but we're getting quite a bit of play, and I think at least our money's worth, if not more.
Well, Cole making a good point here. Honest to God, he's probably playing himself out of our price range. I don't know that we have. It's unbelievable. The Bills have not had that problem in my adult life where we've had too many good players, and I don't know who they're going to sign. If he keeps playing the way it is, it's absolutely going to be Darrell Williams or Matt Milano. They do not have, because if Darrell Williams keeps playing this way, those kind of right tackles get $10 million, maybe 12. He's not going to get huge money, but he's going to get healthy money. We don't have room for both of those. We don't have room for Darrell Williams and Matt Milano for $25 million combined. We just don't have it. So that's a great problem to have. Comp pick bingo. We'll get into that in the offseason. That's the kind of guy that could get us a third-round pick for somebody, but we'll get to that in the long run. That's a great problem to have. So Spain coming back, rotating in. We're going to have Feliciano back, all those different players. Depth on the offensive line is never a problem. And as everybody saw with all the crazy COVID tests around the league right now, extra depth of really talented guys is not going to be a bad thing at all. We're going to need that. Let's flip over to the defensive side of the ball. I'm going to start at a high level on something that I'm hoping we see more of, in that we've always had to be a bend but don't break defense because it was critical not to give those things up. We didn't ever want to go for the big blitz and to make the big play, because if you gave up the big play, we probably couldn't answer with it on a score. I always loved those Peyton Manning defenses and the Chiefs defenses and the other teams where it does give up a lot of yards, but they go for turnovers. They go for sacks. They go for big plays, because anytime you create another possession, that means a touchdown for your team. We did that in the second half today. They started going for the ball. They started reaching out and trying to create turnovers. We were giving up some things, but when we created turnovers, we scored a touchdown. We did it twice. Having that kind of defense, they're not going to change their stripes. Sean McDermott and Leslie Frazier have the scheme that they do. They trust it. They trust it for a good reason, because it's a really good defense and it's worked for years. I hope they find ways to tweak and turn up the aggression a little bit and start going for those plays and encouraging that, because now we have the offense that, one, can bail us out if you don't get the turnover, and two, can completely flip the game if you get a turnover and score big play. And they did it going deep to Stefon Diggs right after that fumble. That's just a play. We've never had that kind of fear to strike into somebody. And I think that's the difference of being able to have a dangerous defense versus maybe quite as strict of a defense as what they had before.
I guess I want to get a little clarification, because I don't think they've ever not tried to get turnovers, right? Sure. Like the punching the ball out has been a thing since Sean McDermott arrived. That's the Peanut Tillman thing. They brought Peanut Tillman in. Trey White talks about it all the time. Almost every time. That's what sort of been a problem with tackling at times, is looking to punch the ball out and not wrapping guys up. I do think in the secondary, and even in the second half, we'll see this. I still think they're going to keep guys in front of them and try to tackle versus try to necessarily make jumps on the ball. You'll see Trey will jump on the ball more often. You're never going to see that at Levi Wallace. I hope we see more of that out of Josh Norman here going forward, but we didn't really see him tested in those ways where he had a chance to jump on the ball.
Tackling was good. The punch for the ball was good. In coverage, I don't think he was any different than Levi Wallace.
He didn't really have any plays that led to opportunities to really jump a route that I saw where the ball came to him. So we don't know that yet. I think we saw some in training camp where he was more aggressive at jumping the route and stuff like that. But I don't know that they don't they coach that side safely. It's something that is either happening or it's not. And we've seen stretches with this Bills defense where they were leading the league in turnovers. And that was a big point of conversation at local radio and stuff, is how sustainable is lots of turnovers, right? Is it something that is just, it comes in bunches and then you're lucky to have them or not? I do think they were getting a little the blitz stuff we saw in the second half. We saw a little bit more blitzing, and I agree with you. I'd like to see when we're not dialing up pressures. And I do think they still want to get 4 rushers and get somebody to the quarterback ideally, but that did not happen in the first half. I mean, Kaiir had perfectly clean pockets to a frustrating level. Like, he wasn't even getting to 3-4 seconds in the pocket and nobody's even touching him or down by his legs. That can't happen. And when you have days like that, Frazier and McDermott need to dial up some of these creative blitzes to try to generate some pressure, because you can't do that. People are knocking the Levi Wallaces and Taron Johnsons of the world, and I'm looking at you, knocking my boy Taron, but you can't guard a guy for 4 seconds in the NFL. You just can't. I don't care if it's Zay Jones or anyone else. You can't guard a guy for 4 seconds in the NFL. You have to get some pressure and disrupt the quarterback. So they've got to dial them up when they're not bringing pressure, for sure. I agree.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see when the numbers come out. I want to see how much more blitzing that we had in the second half. Or I've been wondering this, when you build the depth of the defensive line that we don't have a ton of guys who are just going to purely win one-on-one battles and that are just going to take the guy to task over and over again. In theory, that depth on the defensive line where you're rotating in 8-9 really high-level guys, does that mean in the third quarter and fourth quarter we're going to see more of that we're going to have guys who are fresher and a little bit more explosive, but you're not losing any talent when it switches? When you bring in Quentin Jefferson for Vernon Butler, or you bring in Mario Addison for Jerry Hughes, you're not losing anything. And then the offensive line is a little more tired. Maybe we're going to see more of that. Maybe it's going to take the game to kind of wear down and be able to go there. So I thought the defensive line was okay today. I certainly got the frustration in the first half. They were not getting home. Kaiir is part of that. And we posted here that, we were seeing the ball getting out there pretty quick. That's what Kaiir does. He avoids a lot of those sacks. And I thought that they redeemed themselves a bit in the second half. We had flashes from Jerry Hughes. We had flashes from Mario Addison. Really nice play from Quentin Jefferson. I thought they did all right by the end of the game, but the defensive line, it wasn't their best game, but I thought they recovered towards the end.
In run defense, clearly they did something right. Like, we didn't see a lot of big gaping holes. I thought they did a good job there. The 4th and 1 was all Ed Oliver in that defensive line. That was just a dominant play. So
to hold your block on Gabe Jackson, get him off, absorb Josh Jacobs at full steam, and stuff him for no yards, that is a grown man play.
He's a grown man, and he's actually had a pretty good season. He had a little bit of a quiet week last week. Outside of that, he's had a really good season. It's not showing up on the box score, but he's getting better. There's still some concerns with this defensive line, but I liked what we saw for the most part out of them today. As far as the gap integrity stuff that we heard a lot about, I think that they did a much better job there. And I think you brought up a great point with the rotation, is that some of that stuff won't hit until towards the end of the game, when attrition really is a thing that comes into play.
Trend.
Yep.
Moving into the next layer,
I don't want to talk about Klein.
The linebackers, I'm going to say Tremaine Edmonds looked better in the second half than in the first, but I got why people were getting on him. I saw at least 2 missed tackles, and it was okay. He still over pursues. Anytime AJ Klein was on the field, it wasn't great. And I think I saw that Dodson came in for him. They benched him later in the game when they needed 3 linebackers. So I don't know that I hate that. That maybe that's a thing. I thought Milano was solid as usual in there. I thought they were trying to use him as a blitzer a little bit more than I'd like, but the linebacking core, I think, is supposed to be one of our biggest strengths, and I'm a little nervous.
Yeah, Milano, I thought, was flying around a bunch. I did feel like he got stuck on a few blocks in the blitz. He couldn't get
off as Edmonds does.
They're big dudes in the middle of that Raiders offensive line too. I know Trent Brown being out, everyone said, but that's a good offensive line, and guys get stuck on them. It is true. And yeah, Dodson, Milano got hurt for a second. He got like some type of stinger.
Questionable to return with a peck.
Yeah, and that's when we saw Dodson come in, which I've liked him filling in so far. I think he's done a nice job filling in. But yeah, no,
I think Klein's like 30 pounds heavier than him. I think you're talking like 255 or 260 versus 230.
Yeah. Klein is not impressing me at all. I do want to watch it back, but it does seem like I think it's tough when people say he's getting beat. He's not getting beat man to man. He's getting beat in coverage, and he's not a super athletic guy. That's going to be hard for him. Where I think Matt Milano and Tremaine Edmonds can make up for a little bit with their freak athleticism. Although there's a play I want to go back on, and car was scrambling, and it was just Tremaine Edmonds had an angle on him, and Tremaine did not look to me to be the freaky athlete that he is. Like Carr kind of had the angle on him and got the first down, and that shouldn't have happened. So I don't know if there's something else with, if he's just conditioning wise not up to speed where he's at, but he's tackling high. He comes a lot of these missed tackles. He's coming in. He's a tall guy, so that's going to be when he's going against running backs. He's naturally going to be higher. But yeah, some of those missed tackles are just he's there. He's got the right angles, and he's just tackling high or just arm tackling and missing guys, and that's super frustrating. But I did see him fill a number of gaps today and make tackles, explode. So it's flashes that he can play to that level. It's just kind of putting it together consistently. We need to see from him here going forward.
Yeah, and as Ron brings up here, we don't know exactly what's going on with Tremaine Edmonds. We know that he had the shoulder. We know that he doesn't look quite 100%. They've commented on how he's gutting it out. We don't know for sure what else is going on. So, it is what it is. We'll keep watching that.
It's better than not having him on the field.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, obviously, having Klein and Dodson out there every play is not going to be functional. That we cannot afford that. We're lucky that game was against the Dolphins. I will say, I'm going to bring this up again because it's going to come up in the offseason. I don't think it's an accident that out of the core guys who have been re-signed, the one who hasn't been re-signed yet is the guy who can't quite seem to stay on the field. I'm really curious what Brandon Beane puts Matt Milano's sustainable health as part of his contract structure and the length of the contract. A lot of people keep saying 4 and 5 years. You guys hear me projecting 3 years. That's not an accident. I'm not doing that for no reason. That's because I don't know that I feel comfortable giving Matt Milano a 4 or 5 year deal, even though I like him a lot. I think he's really, really good. I think right now, and I think Eric talked about this previously when guys brought it up, right now, he's a better linebacker than Tremaine Edmonds. Edmonds has a higher ceiling. Edmonds can be better as Edmonds has physical gifts that Matt Milano has. Matt Milano is our best linebacker right now. We need him. I get it. That's probably going to be part of that negotiation, that I'm not 100% sure how much guaranteed money, how they structure the contract, and what he's looking for versus what his agent might want to get on the open market. I hope that's not a reason that he's not back. I want him back. I hope they find the right deal, but I think it's going to be a factor.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I love Matt Milano. The defense is totally different without him. I think if there's a few players where you remove from this defense and things change substantially, and it's Trey White, Poyer and Hyde, and Milano. Yeah. Probably. I think those are the tops where you get rid of any of those guys and things really change as how this defense plays. So you want to keep him. It's going to get hard to keep some of these guys, and the money's getting a little tighter. I hate to have backs up the wall with cap, but that stuff matters. And it's going to come down to, can he stay healthy here the rest of the year? Are these little injuries things that are just going to keep him out of game, or is it going to keep him out of, a month, things like that? You hope he's just out a few series and comes back in games and doesn't miss substantial time. But I think if he has any more injuries where he misses substantial time, whether or not it's a true thing, and I don't necessarily believe in injury prone, you better believe Brandon Beane's going to take that back to his agent just for leverage purposes, right? Like he's trying to get the best deal possible. So it's definitely a point of contention leverage wise if it continues. And then at some point, if it continues, you have to think, is this the type of investment we want to make? Or can we, with Bob Babich here, can we continue to draft and bring in guys, or can Dotson make a big enough leap so where it's, yes, there's going to be a drop-off, but how significant of a drop-off versus how much we're paying them is going to play out, because they're going to have to also make some other tough decisions across the roster outside of Matt Milano moving forward.
Carbon made me laugh. We got to pay Milano because Carolina's out of linebackers that played under Victor. And it's, again, I want everyone to know I am pro Matt Milano. I hope
Me too, big time.
Contract and want him back. I want to plant that seed. It's probably going to be a factor.
Yeah.
So in the secondary, we'll get to the last phase of the team here for the game. I think we had 3 plays with both a healthy Levi Wallace and a healthy Josh Norman on the season. 3 plays into the game, Josh Norman or Levi Wallace has an opportunity on a really bad pass by Derek Carr that he tries to turn back. And as he turns back, kind of pivots weird on his knee and his ankle. It was non-contact. It didn't look great. He was out of the game the rest of the game. We don't know anything more. I know a couple people asked here in the chat, please watch Twitter for us while we're live on the show here.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything reported. I'm not going to get overly dramatic or anything like that. Non-contact injuries are usually not great. I hope that's not the case. I hope it's not anything that serious. But I'm
hopefully it was just caution by them having had Norman back, that they could play with a little bit of caution with Levi. It looked maybe like some type of hyperextension or something. It didn't look like anything really twisted, funny or anything. It was a good play by Levi to get his hand on the ball, like a great play. Yeah, total bummer, because I think he was playing some pretty good football last week. I think he's got good football in him, and I really wanted to see that depth, because I think the plan, everyone thinks, oh, Josh Norman's going to come in and be cornerback 2 and just fix cornerback 2, but I really think the plan is to have a rotation along the secondary, and they're just not seeming to be able to get that rotation here running. So hopefully it's not a long-term injury. They can get him back, and then we can see what the rotation will look like going forward.
Yeah. So if, God forbid, there is a more serious injury, I don't know that we have a real rotation worthy player. I like Cam Lewis long-term, maybe can develop. Prince Amukamara is absolutely a player that I think would be on their radar. We heard rumors that he was going to get brought in for a workout. Nothing's come to fruition. I think he's looking for an opportunity to play, not to just sign with the team and be inactive or be benched. So that would be the scenario there where, hey, if Levi Wallace is down and he's going to be the third corner and is going to play, I think that is a possibility, but we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. We don't know if that's the case here. I think I had some kind of tongue-in-cheek tweets during the game, just teasing that, when you get mossed by Hunter Renfrow and Nelson Aguilar, that's kind of a low point. Those are not all-world athlete receivers in the NFL, so it wasn't the best game by the secondary. This secondary has shut down teams before. I'm really curious to see the all-22 when it comes out. I think Trey and Micah Hyde got beat on that Nelson Aguilar touchdown. They got called back by the illegal formation. I want to see where it came from, but I think just about everybody got taken to the woodshed once or twice in this game. It was okay. Some of the guys made some plays, like Norman came back and made a play. Trey White, was his normal good self the vast majority of the game. Even Nelson Aguilar called that ball over Jordan Poyer, who in those kind of settings is normally the physical presence of the secondary. It was an okay game, but certainly not the best one we've seen from the secondary, especially when you consider the level of talent opposite them with Ruggs and Edwards out.
Yeah, I mean, when you give up 300-plus yards, guys are definitely, you're going to see some of those catches. I'm going to die on the hill that was really good coverage by my guy Taron Johnson when he got mossed. And that happens sometimes in the NFL.
It was a great catch. It was a phenomenal catch.
It was a great catch. And it was good coverage. And considering how many times, last week you were right, he did get burnt in coverage a number of times. I saw a number of plays by him that I like today. I think one thing that's frustrating about this defense, but that they do well, is tackle in the secondary. I think the secondary is built with a ton of good tackling, and they do give up catches, but they give up the yardage, but we didn't see anybody really get beat behind them except for the Jordan Poyer. Jordan Poyer was really the only guy I saw get beat deep behind him, other than the Aguilar one that got called back was pretty bad. I'd like to see what happened on that before the illegal coverage, because that was not.
Yeah, I couldn't tell. It was a communication breakdown, but it wasn't good.
Yeah, but other than that, I thought the secondary did a pretty good job. I think the defense designs a little bit to keep things in front of them. You see a lot of the zone coverage when guys are covering in zone. You see them buffer on those hitch routes and those in routes and give the guy a chance, and then they make sure that they're wrapping up and tackling, that they're not right on top of guys playing press man. So you're going to see some of that. It is going to be frustrating, but I thought they did a pretty good job overall. I'm excited to see the all-22 of this week, because I do think my boy Taryn had a better week. I might be able to get some gifts and throw them in your mentions.
I'm looking forward to it. For our first segment here, the Uncle Jumbo's responsible play of the game. I'm going to use a really simple one. I think in years past, when this team was struggling to score points and you had to scrap and claw for anything that was going on, at the end of the half, when they got the ball, there was a little bit of time left. They had 2 timeouts. I was perfectly fine with them taking a knee. Josh Allen's shoulder was really getting hurt. And it was, it ended up, I think he ended up having 53 full minutes of actual time between real offensive plays by taking that knee. They ate 2 timeouts. I think it was like 19 seconds. It wasn't a big deal, but I think in years past, you would have seen more Bills fans chirping about like, oh man, come on, try to take a shot down the field. That is the utmost example of a responsible play, the most valuable asset on that roster. You take that knee, go into the locker room and give him some more time to heal. And I thought that was a good, simple example of responsible decision-making. Don't be crazy with that, just like Uncle Jumbo's wants you to be.
Yeah, I thought that was a very good decision. I agree. We had a little bit back and forth in the Slack channel when that was going. People were like, come on, you got to try to score. Rangers are going to get the ball back. It's 13 seconds. There's nothing positive or the return on investment for going up for it is not as good as getting Josh. Just
one shot on Josh could have knocked him out.
Yeah, take him into the half, get him a shot or whatever it is he needs to get back out there and deliver like we saw in the second half. The only downside is I was a little worried about how long in between from the time we saw him till we saw him again with an injury, that when he came back out, I was scared, but he changed my mind really quick there. What I'm going to go for is I'm stretching the idea of a responsible play of the game because it was probably a little bit irresponsible. No, it wasn't irresponsible at all. I'm going to go with Daboll's call on the, where was it? Second quarter of the game here on the second Bills drive. It was a 3rd and 13. They send what looks like on one side, everybody going verticals, and it's really McKenzie coming across the middle, and it's essentially an extended screen. I want to talk to Eric about what exactly that type of play call is, but it was almost an extended screen 5 yards down the field, and it was a beautiful play. McKenzie just came right into the blocking lanes, and they picked up a 3rd and 13 on just a really well-designed play. They didn't try to stretch the field and throw the ball over. You always hear the arguments of when you're on 3rd down, you got to get the ball over that 13 yards in order to get it. They didn't do that. They took they knew the defense was going to play that soft. It came right underneath it and ran the blocking lanes. It's one of the most beautiful play designs I've seen from Daboll so far, and it totally caught him off guard, and everybody filled their blocking lanes, and he just got a nice, easy first down. So it's not necessarily responsible play, but it worked, and sometimes that works when you're drinking the Uncle Jumbo's. Things just work out your way, man.
Sometimes it's half the battle. Sometimes you can make, responsible decisions. Sometimes you can have good decisions that end up with responsible results, and that's okay. With the final stretch here, I'm going to say that, our next sponsor, the Wester drive of the game. Make sure you guys are checking out the Wester Automotive Group. Really generous sponsors for us, and excited to be partnering with them. I've kind of set it up a couple times here, but, my big drive of the game was, right there into the 4th quarter. They had just got that strip sack fumble, Josh Norman's first big play as a Buffalo Bill. And that first shot with the deep shot to Stefon Diggs, and it ended up being a 60-yard touchdown drive, come back there with Dawson Knox, and then Devin Singletary's first touchdown of the season. It was just the kind of aggressive, just really the kill shot that we haven't had in our repertoire for a long time. And that kind of drive is something that gets me really excited about this team going forward. So, it wasn't the, crazy 11 play, 59-yard drive from earlier in the game, but 4 plays, 60 yards on a really aggressive shot when you have a defense not prepared to come onto the field. It's something we've been calling for forever. And now seeing a team actually do that, execute on it, and turn it into a kill shot touchdown, that's big time football.
That was a great drive. I'm going with the first drive of the game. 8 plays, 75 yards, 4 minutes and 23 seconds off the clock, ends in the Gabriel Davis touchdown. A beautiful pass from Josh Allen for a 26-yard touchdown.
Every bit on that.
What a beautiful scripted drive from Brian Daboll. I sound like a Brian Daboll stan, and you know what? I am. I don't care. Come at me on Twitter. I don't really care at all. He's done such a phenomenal job. The scripted plays, he was toe-to-toe with Sean McVay a week ago in the scripted plays. Like, he is just putting together stuff that just looks great. The Bills are just executing at a high level, and that set the tone for the game. When I saw them come out and drive down the field almost effortlessly, I think they had like 2 negative plays. The first, jet sweep to McKenzie, and then maybe one other negative play on that drive. The rest of it, they were just kind of establishing their dominance. When you do that to a football team right out of the gate, like, that just sets a tone. And that's something, probably the most frustrating thing about being a Bills fan over not just the Sean McDermott era, just the last 20 years, is getting out to a fast start, like just coming out, good scripted plays, establishing yourself and getting points on the board. That makes teams change their minds about deferring, in the second. Like, it's not just easy, like, oh, we're going to kick off to Buffalo and get the ball back. You kick off to the Bills, Brian Daboll's going to put points up on the board, and he did that right first drive of this game.
Yeah, being able to open with the touchdown drive, it just go up 7, which the Bills have now done quite a few times. It's kind of fun. They just put up points right off the bat. And Eric making a great point. Those are practice situations. That quick turnaround scenario is a situational football. That's stuff that they do and get ready for. And that being able to execute on that is awesome. It's such a great feeling to be able to be in that spot. So it's something that, I think it's fun to get excited about things like this, and being able to now see that kind of execution, and the stuff that we see in other games like, oh man, I wish the Bills would do that. It's fun now to be able to think of that. And the final phase of the game here that I want to touch on here was special teams. And it was another up and down area.
Andre Roberts is super up.
Our patrons say
super up.
Andre Roberts is fantastic. 57-yard punt return. Just the man, anytime he gets his hands on the ball. Daniel Carlson put the ball literally through the uprights twice on kickoffs. His leg is ridiculous. His kick would have been good from like 65 yards. Neither kicker had a great game. I think Bojorquez might have been his fault on the missed extra point. I saw some laces. Either way, Bass needs to make that.
You got to nail that either way on an extra point.
And then I don't know that Bojorquez had one okay punt maybe, but I think it was 3 bad ones. The one had some distance but no hang time. The other ones had hang time, but he put them both into the end zone. At least he had been not having touchbacks to this point. They weren't all great punts, but he hadn't been having touchbacks. This was easily his worst game of the year. So even though it technically looks like 56 yards and there was not a ton of returns because he got lucky and the one got called back, if not for that penalty, his numbers would have looked a lot worse. But 2 touchbacks and the 51-yarder was low hang time directly to him and gave up a big return that we got saved by a penalty.
Yeah. That's all I got. Not a great day for your boy, Jojo.
That isn't something that cost us a game at some point, but just something to keep an eye on.
A closer game that all those things add up and become a problem, right? The missed extra point, a couple of punts that go into the end zone, those things will add up in a closer game. Luckily, this game, it didn't come down to matter. I did see your tweet about how Sean McDermott's handling Bojorquez and his playing. Up until then, he hadn't punted.
I gotta say, Brian Daboll's usage of Corey Bojorquez has been fantastic. I think at that point he had gone like a game and a half without punting, and the only punt was the 72-yarder. So
yeah, and I do think there's something to what you said here preseason, which was his lack of consistency, which is what led to some of the net average stuff. I do think the more you limit his punting, the better he'll look. If it only has to punt once or twice a game. Unfortunately, some of that stuff where it bounces at the goal line, that you could say that's on coverage. I don't know. I don't think anyone had a chance to get down there, and that thing bounced right out. One
bounced up, and there was maybe a shot. The first one, he kicked it into the end zone. The second one, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know if there's a strong argument to make. Nobody was even down there real close. So they got to do better. It didn't affect this game. When it affects a game, man, you're not going to want to hear me talking about kickers when it's affecting the game. So we'll see. He's got to do better holding the ball. I still think he's got to make that kick, whether or not laces are sort of in or kind of kicked to the side, whatever it was. I didn't see it fully, but I do think you got to make those extra points anyway. But again, didn't become down to being an issue, and I don't think Bass has any issues going forward.
Yeah, it's great that we're able to talk about these things. That hey, it's a good thing the Bills were winning by so much that mistake didn't really matter. That's fun. That's the perspective we get to have on these things. So, as we kind of wrap up here, it's something that I know there's obviously a lot of different things going on. A lot of fans are going to be asking about this Titans game going into next week. There's it's gonna be a little bit crazy here trying to figure it out. I from everything I've read, and I've read a ton with looking at this, I think we're at a tipping point right now.
I think tomorrow, if there's positive tests tomorrow, I think that's kind of a wrap.
From everything we've read with the, I don't know what incubation periods are supposed to be, but people who are smarter than me have said that we've kind of reached that point here.
Like a 5 to 7 day window or something.
Yeah, if they've isolated and separated, you shouldn't have any more. If they have more, there's something bigger going on here. If from tomorrow forward, we don't see additional positive tests, I think the Bills are going to play the Titans on Sunday. I think the game's going to be on. I don't think it's already should be canceled or already should be deferred. If we see anything else, I think that the NFL is going to be faced with a very serious question of, is there a bigger issue going on in Tennessee that they've now not followed protocol? They've asked for videotape of their facility to see if they can confirm that they're actually doing what they're supposed to do. I don't know what those answers are. I don't know what you do. I don't know how you handle scheduling. You've already messed with multiples, changed bye weeks and things like that you've now, impacted the Steelers because of the Titans. You now probably impacted the Ravens because I think you had to move the Ravens-Steelers game to fit in the Titans game with the Steelers. If we now get to another week, the Titans don't have an extra bye week. They already used the one. So now I don't know. I don't know what you're doing. So, anyone who is throwing out different scenarios, I don't know how it'll work, and it's all speculation. But for anybody listening here, I think Monday is the tipping point. If we don't see any more positive tests, I think we're going to see a game, and I think they're going to move forward, and they're going to ask the Titans to figure it out with the practice squad that they have and make it work. If we see more, it would go literally maybe beyond the 16-man practice squad, and I don't know that they could field a team, and the NFL is not going to put people on the field when they can't put together a healthy roster. I don't know if that means a forfeit. I don't know if that means a reschedule. I have no idea. I think all things would be on the table.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be on my phone refreshing Twitter really the next 48 hours because it could be Monday, Tuesday. If you see a 2-day gap without positive tests, I think that's a very good sign. And I think, Tuesday morning, the NFL will come out and say, hey, we're planning to have this game going forward. I think the big thing here that we definitely want to get into I want to get out there is people throwing out like teams who should be and shouldn't be punished and how they should be and shouldn't be punished. Look, for me, way above my pay grade. I think that they knew this was coming, the NFL. They talked about knowing that there was going to be some outbreaks. Whether or not the Titans did something right or wrong, I trust in the NFL to investigate it the right way and to handle. They've been handling this pretty fantastic, I think, so far, considering that they're having a team with an outbreak. So we'll see. The good news is there was no outbreak through Minnesota. I think that's great news for the league. We're getting a Patriots game tomorrow night. We didn't see an outbreak happen in New England. I think that
one's there a lot. Nobody talked about the AJ Terrell one last week in Atlanta. This actually happened last week. It wasn't Cam Newton, so people didn't talk about it as much.
Yes, we saw the false positive. I think people got really scared today with the New Orleans Saints. So I think there's more good news in the league right now with COVID testing and all the protocols and stuff like that. Tennessee seems to be an outlier. I don't know whether they make them forfeit the game or not. At the end of the day, I just hope that all these people get healthy and get a full recovery and all that. These are human beings. They all have families. I know that it affects our favorite team, and people are arguing whether the bye week gives them some type of perceived advantage or not. I don't care. I don't really know. I just want everybody to get back healthy. And then, the thing that we love to cover and watch continues to move forward. These guys are smart. They'll figure out how to adjust for the games. It's a multi-billion-dollar business. They're not going to lose business over one team doing this. So they'll figure it out. Football hopefully will just keep on continuing. But I think it's good to always kind of pull back that selfish rooting interest of the Bills and how it affects the Bills. And remember that these are all human beings that are super scared. I don't think they're having a fun bye week now in Tennessee where they're just kicking back. Like, this is a scary time for a lot of people in the Tennessee Titans organization. So just keep that stuff in mind when you're tweeting out some of the takes of what you think should be happening.
Yeah, and it's something that we'll find out all together here. So appreciate it. You guys were awesome in the chat today. Aaron, let the people know where they can find you.
At Aaron Quinn 716 and in Greg's mentions as much as possible.
It's a very common occurrence. Big thank you to Uncle Jumbo's. Big thank you to Wester. Appreciate you guys so much. You guys were awesome in the chat here. Thank you guys so much. Tell a friend, tell a neighbor, tell a relative, tell somebody at the grocery store line. Help somebody find out about Cover One. We'll try to have some fun with them. You have been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and we are out.